slivers that is actually the access along Route 28.
So this is the, that's Joker Wild here, that's the little sliver that they park on?
That's the one that he actually, he rents that around Halloween time.
Yeah.
Parking.
Mm-hmm.
Parking.
Right. And I believe he also has an easement, I believe his septic system is on that parcel.
Where the parking is?
Yeah.
This is a road.
It's
It's not
interesting.
even his land.
Isn't there a street, there's a street that splits the
Hatley
two?
Road, yeah. Could be wrong, but I think there's, I think the septic system.
Well, maybe the septic system will go away when we, when and if we get an opportunity to put in sewage. Well-
That one appears to make some sense to make available.
How do we wanna go forward with this? Want to go into the time and make a decision, or?
We also had some any other requests that we had previously turned down last year? Those aren't before us again?
Yeah, I don't have those in front of me, I only have the new ones that would've come in. It's
Probably
in,
a few more on file.
yeah, it's interesting because the Rust Lane one looks like it came up in 2000, so it's not the first time that parcel was brought up.
That's a huge parcel.
It is.
It's mostly wet.
Yeah,
That's
it is.
why it hasn't been built on.
That's right.
That's why it hasn't been built on.
Yeah. I wonder how much of
6
that
acres,
is
is it?
buildable.
If there was a lot there, it would have been built on when the cul-de-sac
Yeah, I
was
would
put in,
think so.
I would guess.
The report that I have is that it's not buildable.
And that's
that
from
you
who,
get
Greg?
2000,
Who's that report from?
what's that?
Who's the report from? It says
It's
not-
from the former planning administrator to the former town administrator,
274,000 square feet.
and it says that it was not buildable at the time. So, we obviously would go back and
Well,
look
which
at it.
lot is, he talks about it's adjacent lot, but there's two lots that could be. Which one is
If you recall, there was another
a
parcel.
buyer? Which
There
lot
was
is he
another
on
parcel
here?
down there that we conveyed to the residents.
This is it.
That's it?
Is it 1975 Community Planning Northfield subdivision? Was to be maintained, as open space, non-buildable open space / recreation area.
We had the residents in here last year. Patrick. Because I think we had it on the docket to sell. And the residents came in and said, this was, at one point, the developer was supposed to have it conveyed to, almost like an association.
Right.
The neighborhood down there.
Right.
And it was never done.
A playground
And
or
we-
something like that?
What's that?
Well, wasn't that for the playground,
Oh,
Steve?
it's
that's
just a
Valley Road.
private,
That's the other one, okay.
Yeah.
neighborhood private park.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what it was, and I think when the planning commission put this thing together and approved it, they somehow or another wanted it back on the tax rolls. And I don't know if the developer went bankrupt or not, but it never ended up coming to fruition, and as a result, the developer, of course, didn't develop it, and ended up being taken, I believe, the tax title,
Yes, it was.
taken the tax title, and it was never conveyed to the neighbors.
I guess the question I have is he's got the adjacent lot, it's one of the neighbors.
I think we, with the conversation.
Given
we
that,
had on-
could he develop that?
No, probably not, it's not buildable, but I think we
When you
need
say
to,
not buildable, what do you mean?
I think it's pretty wet.
Self
Oh,
is,
okay.
well, we can self is not buildable.
I think we need to, consult with, first of all, otherwise Mike Fitzpatrick, because there is an association in that neighborhood, in the deed, somehow or another, where they're supposed to maintain something and pay dues or some sort of a deal like that, and I think Mike was, well, he knows what he knows about it, but I don't know who the attorney was at the time that was handling it, but it kind of fell apart. But if you recall, they came before us, actually, we were having the discussion about the planning commission, because this was one of the parcels that was going to be tagged for affordable. And when they're doing that overlay, and the butters weren't notified, and we had the turmoil, and all the people came out, this was one of the neighborhoods that came out and said, whoa, what's going on? This was supposed to be our land, and,
It was going to be tagged for affordable, someone must have had the
that was
inkling.
devoid of any looking at whether it was actually buildable. It was just based on square footage alone. Because we didn't spend all the money, we meaning the town didn't spend all the money to take a look at every parcel that could have been tagged. Not necessarily affordable, but multifamily.
Greg, you know what it would have been,
Then the CPC pulled back everything. Took 6 months to a year, and came back with a much smaller proposal.
you know what would have been interesting to have is anything that changed from last year marked on the sheet in a different color.
You mean new?
When you went around, just to see if there's
Any interest?
interest change or something.
Or if anything's been added. Did we pick up any parcels? I don't think we picked up any that I'm aware of.
It's always possible we might have
Yeah.
picked up.
Yeah, because, you know, a lot of these things that, you know, you look, housing partnership, you know, they've got years on lots of lots.
Sure.
Right. I mean, it would be easy if we could cull that down to, these are serious lots that we'd like to, you know, put in the queue. That would, you know, permit us to look at these other lots, in a little different light.
Okay, when it relates to Russ Lane, I'll get in touch with some of the residents down there and find out, get the story back and refresh my memory on it. But again, if I recall, this may be a parcel that we may want to talk about conveying again back to the neighborhood as it should have been.
All right, why don't we do this? There's, of all of these lots, right, let's start by, first, are there any on here, and we'll do one at a time if that makes sense, that we definitely don't want to sell? That we know now we don't want to sell.
Why don't we
Because
flip it? Why don't we flip it and say, is there anything that we've seen that looks of interest? Like the
Well,
ones
it
on
seems
Main
like-
Street interest me. Go ahead. You know?
Why I'm saying that is that it seems like the rest of them, then we need to go and do some more work, get some more information before we make any decision. And that's how I'm viewing it.
See, I look at it, if the housing partnership or, again, just looking at the first page here on the Cold Spring Road, all of a sudden we have interest from the housing partnership, conservation, so you've got the housing partnership looking to build something on conservation land, something that conservation's interested in, that the CPC is interested in, that LUC is interested in, and DPW is interested in. Why would DPW have an interest in something on Cold Spring Road, unless it be for sewerage and
Right.
pumping stations and
Pumping station.
things of that nature? So, I mean, that's.
Well, that's
something-
why
you know.
I thought it would have been nice to have identified on here any change from last year. Because as we're talking about, you know, as an example, talking about sewer, all of a sudden, you know, DPW comes up and flags it, because a lot of these things, they haven't changed in years, every time I look at this list, right? And therefore, it's kinda hard to, make any decision on, because certain organizations, you know, want.
I would,
It's almost like you'd like to cull the list down by saying, okay, conservation, right, if they want these lots, let's convert them over to and no one else is interested in them, let's make the move, make them conservation, period, get it over with. The list now is smaller.
yeah, other than when you turn it over to conservation, you've certainly limited town's ability and future boards' ability to do
I
it.
understand.
Right. See, I would like to take the easiest one, which is if DPW has an interest in something here, let's find out why. And then those particular lots probably shouldn't be touched at this point, because it's part of a bigger plan, probably in relation to our sewage project, just a guess. If that's the case, then we need to protect ourselves and our interests, so we're not having to buy parcels in order to put in our infrastructure.
Would you wanna do that with each department or committee?
Yeah, but I wanna.
Let them tell us, instead of just saying yes, force them to tell us why they want a particular parcel.
I think what you'll find with the Housing Partnership and Housing Authority is they haven't done any, you have to do perk tests and everything else, because generally the Housing Partnership and Housing Authority definitely have to do with affordable housing. And that would be devoid of any topography in relation to perk tests, or this just in case the parcel size looks like it's big enough, maybe it could house some affordable housing, so therefore we're interested. But then I get concerned when I say, okay, I see the housing partnership and I see conservation at the same time. Generally, the two don't mesh very well, the housing or building. So at some point, we're going to have to make some determinations on these lots. And I know the building inspector has a pretty good handle on all of these parcels, because when we were getting inundated with 40Bs, poor Mr. DeCola was requested to go through every particular parcel of land and find out what is it buildable, is it not buildable, and why or why not.
Given our financial picture, I'd like to have the town should take a more proactive role in marketing these and get these back on the tax roll, whatever the cost is, or whatever we gain in terms of a sales price, we'll get them back on the tax roll.
Some of them, maybe some of them.
Right.
Some of them.
Some of them I know
some of
we
them, when
probably
you-
would not want to do
When you put it on the
that.
tax roll for a single-family house, it costs the town money.
It's gotta be
No, I understand, I'm not
Yeah.
saying every single parcel, but I think we should take a more proactive role in marketing certain parcels for that particular purpose.
Well, where are we going here? We're not going anywhere.
Well, this document is helpful as far as it
I-
goes.
No, I understand, but, Greg has identified a number of parcels that people are interested in. So I thought, step one, of those requests, right, are there any that we're absolutely against for the information we have now? If
Against
there
what?
are,
Against
take
what,
it off
Bob?
the list,
Against what?
against selling it, for whatever reason. And if not, then the next step would be to pursue those opportunities further. And if it's a case where DPW has got a flag on it saying they're interested, then as Steve said, we gotta go ask them, what their interest is.
Right, that's actually how we would handle it, is if you decide you wanna meet with these residents to discuss their interest, we will go back specifically on these parcels and find out exactly what the interest is, or whether they're just saying yes. Cause I think that might.
See, that, like that 195, first page, map 8, parcel 195, where the people are looking for a land swap. And it just skins me, but I think there was some interest where, maybe even the square footage is even better. Maybe the DPW would say, okay, I have an interest in this parcel that we have right now for whatever reason, but this other parcel is significantly, close enough where that'll work just as well. And we can accomplish what these people are looking for, and this is more for safety reasons than anything else, as far as quality of life of the people on Burrows Road, and the particular owners of that parcel, which I don't have a problem assisting them with if we can, and
Well-
still meet the needs of.
All right. Following along the lines that Sean has suggested, is that if we could put property back on the tax roll, and it makes sense, then we ought to go forward with it. So what I would suggest is somehow, and this is where my concern is, where there's a lot of yeses under housing partnership and conservation and so on and so forth. What I'd like to do is get them, if they actually want this property, is to get it off this list, so we have a short list to go out and market. Right? I think the problem is we get this big list, and, I've been on the board now, this is my 4th year going through this, and we haven't made any progress. That's my problem with what we're doing. We don't have a process that is aimed at turning this land.
Mr. Chairman, just based upon the requests that were put before us this evening, I would have no problem in looking more closely at disposing of those 3 parcels on Main Street, which are, 2 little slivers and then one just by Patley Road. It's on page 3, map 14, 119, 140, 141. The Rust Lane, I'd hold off until I talk to the neighbors down there, because I know there's a story behind that one. The other one, Juniper Road, which is actually basically off of School Hill, these people